Stranger Things 5 is the lowest rated season of Stranger Things by far. And the episode, The Bridge, the one where Will Byers comes out, is so poorly rated on Rotten Tomatoes that it's dragged the whole season into the rotten category. But is there actually any validity to those criticisms? Because they're coming from every direction, ranging from people being mad that they're seeing Will come out at all, to people saying that, oh, he and Mike actually should have ended up together. Well, here I want to show you that there actually is one criticism that is pretty fair, and how the rest of them really just don't hold water. That this episode, in fact, is part of a horror tradition that makes it pretty brilliant that Will comes out the way that he does. Welcome to Philosophy All Along. I'm a professional philosopher. I like to use the tools of philosophy to help me understand the things that I love, like Stranger Things, on a deeper level. What's really going on here? Well, one thing is that we should immediately realize is the backlash that's coordinated to try and erase the episode, basically, that you have these people getting on Reddit and trying to get on Discord and literally working together to try and review bomb the episode so that Netflix is being punished for having gay representation at all. Well, what we realize is that is exactly the fear that Will is facing in the first place. People's response to this episode, I have people going into the comments saying things like, my children are never going to be able to watch this now. I'm not watching the show. I'm leaving it. I'm done. And what you realize is that's exactly the fear that Will had. Vecna goes into people's heads and finds the things about them that they are sure that no one will be able to accept, whether or not it's them somehow being accidentally responsible for someone's death, or their hatred for their brother, or the fact that they're gay. He's going into your head and saying, you know what, if people knew this about you, they would hate you. So they basically just might as well die. And that's what we're doing to Will, and that's what we are doing to the show. If you're one of those people who's like, well, I just can't watch this anymore because of this, and I'm going to review bomb it, and I'm going to try and erase it, well, then you are Vecna. We become Vecna. We become the people who have abandoned Will, literally because he's gay. We are living out the fear that people are trying to tell me, well, that's ridiculous. Homophobia really isn't real. It's not a big deal. There's gay people everywhere. Well, if it's not such a big deal, then why is Will's fear that he would be abandoned by the people who care about him being lived out by the rest of us? So that's really interesting. But is there actually a narrative structural problem? And I do think that there is. So the episode does break a cardinal rule of storytelling. There is one fair criticism, and that criticism is that it's a lot of exposition instead of actually showing us what it is that it's trying to tell us. What I mean is when Will tells us that Vecna has shown him this vision of what would happen if he tells people who he really is. Instead of showing it to us, the episode has Will tell us that it's this traumatizing moment. So we don't see how he thinks people would respond. We don't see the vision at all. We don't even see the aftermath of the vision in terms of Will looking abandoned or crying or anything like that. So it breaks this rule where what you're supposed to do is show people, not tell people. Even if you're writing a novel, and you're actually having to tell us things because you're writing it, you don't want to write, he felt angry. You want to write, his eyes turned red, or something like that. In other words, something that gives us, his fists were clenched. You don't need to tell us that he was angry. We know it because you've shown it to us. So it does seem to be breaking that rule. And I'm not entirely sure why the Duffer Brothers decided to do it. It probably just comes down to not wanting to show beloved characters engaging in that kind of hate, where they're like being cruel to him or calling him the FAG word or something like that. But there were still other ways to show it, or at least show the after effect of the trauma. The whole show revolves around trauma, especially to the trauma done to children. That's really important to realize. These criticisms of like, I don't know why they had to show it, because that is a trauma that teens face. You just don't hear people complaining about, oh, well, they showed domestic violence. They did. It's a real thing that children actually face all the time. Tragically, they show us children facing death, heartbreak, abandonment, a whole lot of bullying, domestic violence, right? So you didn't see people going, well, I don't know why they had to show Billy being hit by his father as a kid. That's just unnecessary. My children aren't going to watch it anymore. They didn't complain about it because they're not an active participant in abusing their child. But they apparently are active participants in trying to erase the gay population, so they're basically fine in saying, well, I don't understand why we had to see this. In other words, the show's always been about trauma, and this time the Duffer Brothers kind of shied away from showing us some of that trauma. So it's really interesting that people are complaining about seeing too much when it's literally the trauma that they've kind of shown us the least of its actual impacts and how hard it is. And I think that probably is an error because we also would be more moved by it. We might understand, critical viewers might understand why it was necessary for Will to come out as he does if they saw how truly afraid he was, like what in his mind he thought would actually happen. And because we don't see that, people are like, well, I don't understand. Everyone already knew he was gay. Why do we have to bother with that? So that is, I think, a writing error. This doesn't mean that any of the rest of the criticisms hold water. The fact is Vecna is internalized shame. And there's a long horror history of this. We needed to see Will face this. The idea of facing a fear, naming it, and addressing it collectively, really, really old trope that the Duffer Brothers already, we know, love to use, specifically Stephen King and It, right? Fear feeds the monster, facing it together, naming it, helps us come together to address it. The Babadook does something similar, right? Repression gives the monster form. Hill House, if you remember, is literally about people engaging in shared family trauma and trying to name it, trying to voice it. So basically, the whole old rule is if you fear it, you feed it. And if you don't face it, if you try and hide it, if you try and repress it, it will eat you alive. So the Duffer Brothers literally may not have any kind of political agenda at all. They might be looking at the thing that we as a society encourage people to hate about themselves the most, or one of the things that we encourage people to hate about themselves the most. And having that voiced in the way that it does is really important. So what I mean is a lot of people are also critical that he comes out kind of in public. They're like, well, if someone's coming out, I mean, wouldn't they actually do it quietly, just maybe to one or two close friends? Why does he come out in front of everyone? Because that is exactly what he has to do to counter Vecna. He has to cut the strings. He has to make sure that if he goes back into Vecna's mind, or if he faces Vecna in some way, that Vecna cannot use that fear against him, that there cannot be anyone that he's thinking, okay, this person still kind of doesn't know, how might they respond? He's completely cut Vecna off. And importantly, not in a fashion of, okay, I've gotten everyone to love me. I've seen that everyone's okay with it. No, facing the fear does not mean that Mike is going to suddenly be in love with Will. Facing the fear isn't about the way that everyone else responds. Facing the fear is about being who you are, even if everyone responds poorly. Even if everyone had been like, okay, we're done with you, Will, bye, he still would have cut Vecna's strings by virtue of the fact that he had faced it, he addressed it, he was out. Being closeted, even if it was just like, well, I'm going to tell this one person quietly, maybe one or two other people quietly, by being closeted, he still gives voice to the idea that there's something he should be ashamed of. So when he came out to the entire group, he was metaphorically coming out to the world. And in a lot of ways, on a meta level, coming out to us as well. That's why so many people are struggling with the episode and they don't know why. They're like, well, there's just something that I just don't think's right about the way. Because you're bothered by the fact that what Will is really saying is, I have nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing wrong with me. Vecna has no power over me. He doesn't get to come into my head and say, there's something wrong with you. And once people know, they will hate you. Maybe they do hate me, but I am me, and you can't use that against me. So we basically, as Vecna, as the audience Vecna, going, oh, well, I just don't understand. Really what that means is we hate the fact that he is so comfortable just being himself. And as such, they are voicing Vecna. It's basically like how people will say things like, I have no problem with black people. I just don't know why I have to act so black. It's literally the same problem. Oh, I'm okay with gay people, but do they have to be out? Yes, because people shouldn't have to be ashamed of themselves, at least from Will Byers' perspective. He's saying, if you're not going to have power over me, you're not going to have power over me because I'm me and I'm proud of me. I have pride in myself. So Vecna is now totally cut off. It makes perfect sense. I really understand Will Byers in a lot of ways. As a child who grew up in the 80s, as someone who was very small and very nerdy, I can honestly tell you that people decided for you that you were gay, whether or not you had any concerns or cares about sexuality at all. Myself, when I was a little kid, all I was really interested in was like drawing starships and taking my Transformers and apart and trying to build bigger Transformers. But everyone had already decided that they were either terrified, like my family was terrified that I might be gay because I was not showing interest in anything other than these nerdy things. And people were calling me the FAG word and bullying me because they had already decided my sexuality for me. And you see this in season 1 and season 2 of Will. And now so many viewers have abandoned him because he said, oh, well, interestingly enough, turns out I actually am gay, and I'm proud of myself. And we're like, oh, we can barely handle that. The fact of the matter is there's lots of people who are treated like that who weren't gay, and a lot of people who are treated like that who are. Either which way, it utterly sucks. It is abusive, and the fact that they gave voice to that is a powerful experience in season 1 and season 2. And the fact that they had a person who said, you know what? You've been trying to make me feel ashamed of the possibility that I might be this kind of person my entire life. I refuse to accept that shame. The fact that he refuses to accept that shame is a beautiful thing and a truly strong moment of horror storytelling. Here's the fact. If we, and by that what I mean is the critics, don't want to keep seeing the traumatized moments of people coming out, and you keep saying, well, I just don't understand why it has to be in our faces, then stop traumatizing people. If you do not want so many coming out stories, if you don't want so many stories to focus on this idea of the importance of coming out and why it matters, that they face their traumas, then stop traumatizing them. They won't have nearly as much need to face their traumas if we as a society stopped abusing them. Easy peasy, right? Okay. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if I got something wrong, if I missed something, go ahead and pop it in there in the comments. If I got something right, even better, please do let me know. Hit the bell, get alerts. Please subscribe. It really helps the channel. But most importantly, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sharing this journey through the end of Stranger Things with me. It's been so much fun, and I just hope you get to enjoy it and love it as much as I do. Have a great rest of your day.